Hallowed Sepulchre is a great way to train agility. Unfortunately, it's also a hard one, so since I had to smash my head against the keyboard to learn this, I decided to make this guide. I don't want to spend too much time here since the wiki does exist, but you need a minimum level of 52 agility to access at least the first floor, with needing level 92 agility to access every single floor. You also need access to Dark Mayor, which involves the completion of the Sins of the Father quest. I would also heavily recommend Graceful as well as one Ceredomin item, as well as food, because the traps will actually damage you. You can bring any cheap food like wines, but you don't need to bring thousands because you only require them from the beginning. The Grand Coffin is the last big coffin at the end of floor 5 that provides the best rewards, including the Ring of Endurance. However, it is not the only coffin you can loot, as you can loot normal coffins throughout the different floors. The higher floor you are, the better the loot is, so loot from coffins from floor 1 and 2, for example, are different from floor 4 and 5. Before you start doing attempts to go into lower floors, I would 100% recommend focusing on getting the loot from these coffins, especially from floors 1 and 2. That is because they give Hallowed marks, which is the currency used in the store of the minigame. This store has multiple rewards that aid in the looting of the coffins, but it is also where the Hallowed ring is. This Hallowed ring is a reward you can buy, which makes it so you no longer take damage from the traps, so it's a huge quality of life upgrade that you need to get, which is why I'm recommending you to focus on getting it above focusing on anything else. On top of that, because you don't actually take damage from the traps, you will respawn from them a tick faster, which doesn't sound much but will add up by the end of the run. So yes, this is an immense quality of life, and I would recommend you buy nothing else but this ring from the beginning. Like, first grind this ring and then focus on the minigame itself. This also counts as a Ceredomin item, so you no longer need a Ceredomin item after you getting it. To loot these coffins, however, you do require 66 thieving as well as other levels and gears, since there are 4 types of looting that you can access. I'm gonna go over them briefly. They are very noticeable and they're not hard to figure out, and really all you need to do is just click on the entrance to the coffin and then just click on the coffin to loot in. So yeah, bring multiple supplies actually, because you do spend supplies when actually going for them. So for broken bridges you need 56 construction, a saw, hammer, 2 planks and 5 nails. These can be of any kind, but the better planks and the better nails, the more XP you give. For the braziers you need 54 prayer as well as 2 vampire dust. For the portal frames you need 7 magic and runes for enchanting spells. The higher the enchanting spell, the higher the chance of succeeding, because if failed twice, you can no longer go through the portal to get the loot. So yeah, just bring the highest level of enchantment you can do. 7 is just a minimum. Personally, I would bring for level 6 enchanting or onyx enchanting, since it was pretty cheap and it was pretty high level. For pillars you need 62 ranged, a crossbow and a mithril grapple, and you won't lose any mithril grapple or anything like that to looting them. So looting these is pretty much free as long as you have these items. And those are the 4 types. These coffins can actually increase the GP per hour if you have reached the point where there's enough time left to go for them and still reach the end. Again, I would advise you on focusing on just practicing the floors as much as possible before going for them, unless you are going for the ring. So first go for the ring, then practice the floors, and then try and include these coffins as you go through the floors. So because they can actually be quite a huge increase in the GP per hour you can actually get. Before we go through the gameplay, let's talk a bit about the traps you will find. I'll talk about how to get through them later, but this is just so you know what you're up against. First up we have the Flaming Wizards. These are rows of wizards that spit out flames in a cycle. Usually there are gaps and timings you can use to avoid them. Getting it means that you have to restart the entire obstacle. Then we have sword statues. These are statues that throw a spinning sword which will then come back. It goes on a straight line and is generally very easy to avoid. Getting it means that you do have to restart the obstacle. Then we have the arrow statues. These statues constantly fire arrows. They are always on the same timing, but which one of the 3 statues will fire will be random. Getting it does mean that you restart the obstacle. Thunder statues. These statues will shoot thunder on an X pattern. Most of the times you will only see the thunder, not the statues themselves. The thunder mostly just stuns you, but it's on a consistent cycle, so it's pretty easy to avoid. Getting it just stuns you for a short period of time and nothing else. And lastly, we have the teleporters. The blue ones teleport you forward and the yellow ones teleport you backwards. They only teleport when active, so, they're mostly an annoyance. I just ignore them. Stepping on one, it just literally teleports you. There's no stunning, there's no restarting the obstacle or anything like that. So yeah, with that, let's actually get into the dungeon and how to actually pass through the obstacles. Before I actually start going through all of the floors and all of the obstacles, there's a couple of things I want to touch on. First of all, the paths that you get are completely random, meaning you don't actually get to choose which path you run. At the end, you can click on the pillars to recharge your run energy, which is why you need a Suridomin item. If you don't have a Suridomin item, you will actually just lose all of your run energy, which is not very fun. The entire minigame is running on a cycle, meaning the obstacles don't wait for you to cross them. They just keep firing and cycling between their attacks over and over and over and over. So don't worry about arriving late or early to them. Sometimes the visual cues don't actually line up with the hitboxes, meaning you might go after an arrow, for example, and still get it. So give them the proper space, since you should have enough time to go through the obstacle anyway. You can turn on the agility plugin on RuneLite. It will have a section for the Hallowed Sepulchre where it highlights projectiles. This can actually be really useful for visual clarity, but it can also clog up the screen, but it's something that I use that was kind of helpful. Always start running as soon as you enter a floor. Again, the minigame is all about cycles, and catching certain ones not only makes things faster, but also makes certain obstacles easier. Teleports will make you immune for obstacles for just a short period of time. It's not gonna happen too often, but I'm saying this so you don't get confused when you get teleported, get hit by an arrow, and you don't actually restart the obstacle. Movement in RuneScape isn't as easy as it appears, so it will be frustrating to do the minigame at the start if you're not used to the movement. Personally, I would try to always finish the floor even if the timer runs out, because you still get the experience regardless if you have access to go to the lower floors because you still have time or not. So the obstacles are always there, you can always practice them whenever you want, so take your time, and just the XP, you will always get it as soon as you finish the floor, even if you don't have time. Lastly, I use ground markers in order to actually know where to stand. I'll try and figure out how to leave these available in the description, but essentially just very quickly, yellow tiles means that you need to stand there before passing an obstacle. Cyan tiles are optional tiles in case you mess up a timing or just to make some obstacles easier to traverse. Purple tiles are safe tiles, you can stand there, you won't ever get hit by any obstacle, and you can just go AFK, take a little bit of a break. There are a couple more markers that I use, but they're mostly single use, so I'll talk about them when I come across them. First of all, you can start by running to the either side of the main lobby. There's no difference between them, they're both entrances just work. So floor 1 has 4 different paths, mostly having between 2 and 3 obstacles. The obstacles are pretty slow and give you plenty of time to dodge them. Floor 1 north. Here we have 2 obstacles. We have first an arrow statues, which just fire a single arrow. It's pretty easy to dodge, so just take your time, dodge on the horizontal when needed, and make your way until the end. And secondly, we have some flame wizards. I marked the tiles here, and you can honestly use them all. You do, however, have timings to be able to make this in progress through the obstacle, but generally speaking, just try and make it through the first set of wizards, the middle set, and then the last set, and that's a pretty easy way of passing through all of the wizards. You then go down the stairs and you reach the end. Floor 1 East. Here we have 3 obstacles. First we have flame wizards. Run right after entering the floor to make it to the middle of the statues. In case you can't get it, just wait for the flame wizards to stop and then use the optional tile instead. Then we have a sword. Generally swords are you always have to wait until they come or they leave, and you just go right after one of those two things happen. You have to be careful to not go too early, because the sword hitbox does linger around for a little bit after it arrives or after it departures, so the sword might still be active. Yeah, the hitbox can be a little bit deceptive, but generally speaking, it's super easy to get past it. Next up we get more flame wizards. Depending on your timing, you either want to use the yellow square and then just clear the entire obstacle, or you use the optional square. Either way, you can clear the obstacle with only one cycle. And then you go down the stairs, and that's floor done. Floor 1 West. Here we have 3 obstacles. First, the flame wizards. Use the square in the middle and then run to the end. Then you have a sword, you want to wait as soon as it arrives or departures, and then you run right after. After that we have another arrow statue with a single arrow. At first I honestly just ended up choosing one lane and stuck with it unless I have to actually dodge. It just makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Also, I always focus on making short progress, so I actually have more time to dodge rather than the character just going horizontally, or rather vertically fast and then just going horizontally at the end. So if you click in short bursts, your character will actually prioritize going to the sides rather than going forward. But at this point it should be pretty easy to dodge anyway, and then you make your way down the stairs and that's floor finished. Floor 1, south. Here we have 3 obstacles. There is a sword at the beginning. You can instantly run and go to the middle square, wait for the sword to pass. This square is kinda hard to spot, but it is a safe square, you don't get hit by the sword. Then we have flame wizards right after. You have to stop in the middle and just wait a cycle, and then you can run again. So here you kind of have to short it in a way. Then you have a arrow statue with a single arrow, so you pretty much just do as previously stated, and then you go down the stairs, and that's the floor done. That's all paths for floor 1. Floor 2 also has 4 paths, and the obstacles are the same speed as the previous floor. Floor 2 north. Here we have 4 obstacles. It starts with a simple jumping platform where you don't need to do anything. Then you have a very short arrow section. This one is short enough that you can just kind of ignore it and click to the other side if you don't want to deal with it. Then we have another sword. As all, it's pretty slow, so you just need to run right after it arrives or departures. Make your way down the stairs, then you have a bunch of teleports. I just ignore them and run. Try not to click on them, as it can, make it more likely you get teleported, but still, you can just kind of ignore them. And if you don't get teleported and you haven't caught in any other obstacles until now, you can actually just run all the way to the middle of the Flame Wizard statues, as the cycle actually lets you. If not, just do it normally as before, where you wait at the optional tile, and then you make your way to the middle, and then you clear the obstacle. Floor 2 east. Here we have 5 obstacles. It starts with flame wizards. Just wait for them to fire and then make your way to the middle and then to the end. Then we have an arrow statue with a single arrow. Again, just do the same as before. Then we have teleporters, but again, just ignore them and make your way down the stairs. Then we have more flame wizards. Depending on the cycles, you might be able to ignore the first 3 and make your way directly to the middle. Otherwise, wait for the first 3, make your way to the middle, and then wait for the next 3 and then clear them. And then we get more flame wizards. With a bit of time you can actually one-shot this one, so just wait for them to shoot, and right after they're done you just run all the way across. Floor 2 west. Here we have 4 obstacles. It starts with a sword. If you run right away and catch the timing, you should not have to wait for it. Otherwise, same as before, just run after it arrives or it fires. Then you have teleports. Again, just ignore them. Then we have some flame wizards. If you run right after they stop, you can do it all in one run. If not, you can use the optional tile. Then we have another sword, just wait for it and then run right after. If you decide to go after the sword fires, however, you need to actually go to the side, otherwise the sword is just blocking your path, and if you go into the sword, you will get it and you'll have to redo the obstacle again. Floor 2 south. Here we have 4 obstacles. It starts with a symbol arrow obstacle. Just to remind you, making short progress is better since it gives you more time to dodge arrows in case they are coming in your direction. Then we have teleports, just before a sword. Ignore the teleports. The sword is slow, so you have more than enough time to beat it. Again, just start running right after it arrives or it's fired. You then go down the stairs and then you have a simple single arrow again to end the floor. And that's the end of floor 2. Next up we have floor 3, which has 2 paths instead of 4. The obstacles here are actually upgraded, meaning they are a bit faster than the previous floors. Floor 3 east. Here is where we start having a bunch of obstacles. This path has 6 obstacles, where one is a double obstacle. Run right at the beginning to catch the cycle and skip the first flame wizards. In case you don't, you can just make them one set at a time. Next is a simple sword. Despite being faster, the same logic applies from the previous floors. Go right after it returns or it departures and you should be safe. Then we have a long path with arrows with teleports. Ignore the teleports, focus on the arrows and make short paths of progress. Try and avoid clicking on the teleports to minimize the amount of times you do get teleported. These might be the first actual difficulty increase, especially due to the arrow statues firing double arrows, but again, if you can't avoid clicking on the teleports, just fully focus on the arrows because that is the one that will reset your obstacle if you do get it, so focus on dodging those. Then we have a short sword. Same logic as the previous sword. Right after we have flame wizards. If you catch the timing, you can run all the way and only have to wait one cycle. Otherwise, in case you miss it, you can do it in 2. Down the stairs and you arrive at the last obstacle of floor 3. This obstacle is going to be the first wall for many players. You have to go north with arrows firing from the south. On top of that, you have flame wizards. Let's break the flame wizards into 2 batches. Focus on the arrows, make sure you prepare a pattern of arrows where the arrows just fired, so you have a bit of time to line up where the arrows aren't, and then look at the wizards and run. In case you are in the middle, wait for the arrows to pass to not accidentally go up against them and have to repeat the obstacle. This middle portion is safe from the flame wizards, so you just need to keep dodging the arrows and you can just sit there for as long as you want waiting for the flame wizard cycles. Since the arrows are actually coming from further away, you have more time to react than you did at the start of the obstacle, so just take your time to dodge the arrows and then complement it with the flame wizard cycle and then just run. Again, you can run the entirety of the first flame wizards and then the entirety of the second in one run, in one flame wizard cycle. So don't worry about it, just, focus on dodging the arrows. If you do actually do that, most of the times what's gonna happen is when you are running through the flame wizards, then you will only need to dodge one arrow and run the next flame wizards. So you will be fast enough to do that where you won't need to dodge multiple arrows in the flame wizards. You can just do it in one go, so you don't need to worry that much about the flame wizards, right? So yeah, at first it might be a little bit tricky, especially the first part of the obstacle, but with a little bit of practice you can get it down. After that, you reach floor 4. Floor 3 West. Here you have 6 obstacles as well, with one being double obstacle. It starts with double arrows, very short, just take it slow, you have a bit of timing after dodging horizontally to then go forward. Then we have flame wizards, it takes a bit of timing, but you should be able to clear all of them in one go. Then we have a sword and teleports, again just ignore the teleports and just run as soon as the sword arrives or departures. If you do get teleported back, you won't be able to make it, but it's pretty easy to just try the obstacle again, so I just found it easier to, again, just retry the obstacle rather than trying to overwhelm myself with caring about the teleports. I just ignore the teleports, retry the obstacle, better luck next time. We then have some more double arrows, same as before, short progress so you can react faster. Then we have a sword again, just wait for it and you run right after it departures or it arrives. Again, that's all you need. And then you go down the stairs and the path meets with the end of the east side, so I won't repeat myself, but again, it's very important to set yourself where the arrows aren't, look at the wizards, clear the first batch, dodge the next arrow, clear the next batch. You should have plenty of time to do those things. And yeah, those are the 2 paths for floor 3. Floor 4 also has 2 paths and the obstacles are the same set of difficulty, although a little bit more difficult. Floor 4 North. First up, it starts with Thunder Majors. To clear these, you want to go to the middle, click one square before the thunder, where the thunder is, and then you just run through. You should never get it this way, by the way. Next up you have a sword, same as before, wait for the sword and then just run right after. You might end up getting teleported further, as a teleport here is kind of like an intended way of beating the obstacle, but I never really needed them. We then have arrows and teleports. Again, ignore the teleports, and for the arrows, again, just focus on short bursts of progress while trying to not click the teleports. You have parts of the obstacle where the floor doesn't have teleports, teleports, and usually I try to click on those. But again, always prioritize the arrows. You know, if prioritizing the teleports or like thinking about the teleports is too overwhelming, just check it up to RNG and fully focus on the arrows. Then we get the Flame Wizards. You only need 2 to 3 moves to clear it. However, you can only start moving right after the wizards on both sides have fired. That's what the red title in there means. It's to remind you of this, right? So after both sides have fired, you move to the next red tile. Then you wait for them to fire, and then you move to the next one, wait for them to fire, and then you can clear the obstacle. Once you get there, they might not actually be on the right timing, so again, just wait for both of them to fire and then you can start clearing the entire obstacle. It seems super overwhelming, but it's actually super simple of an obstacle. Then we have another pretty much just arrow statue with like teleports and thunder at the end. Again, just ignore those things and just pay attention to the arrows. While teleports and thunder can be annoying, at first you can just leave them at that annoyances. Just don't click on the thunder spots or like the thunder tiles and you shouldn't really have an issue, especially if you're just like running around. But yeah, always prioritize arrows because that is the one that will reset the obstacle if you get hit by. Then you go down the stairs, and this is the last obstacle before floor 5 and one of the worst one for beginners. I still struggle with this obstacle and I have over 300 KC in this minigame when it comes to opening the Grand Coffin at the end. You have arrows and a sword. You cannot outrun the sword, you will simply get it. The way to surpass this is to use the teleports at the end. You have to run right after the sword is fired or right after the sword arrives, either is fine, either works. Then you need to just run, dodge the arrows and then step on the teleporter in order to gain enough distance between you and the sword. The way to know if a teleporter is active is if it's blinking. So if it's blinking, the teleporter is active. It stays around for 4 ticks, 4 blinks. So you have kind of a tight timing, but you know, it should be able to do it. So yeah, but then you cannot get distracted because when you get teleported you still have arrows coming your way, so you need to dodge them and then you go to the side of the obstacle so you can finally clear both the obstacle and the floor. This is gonna take a lot of tries in order to clear. Trust me, this was like the demon obstacle and I dreaded getting the northern path on floor 4 because of this obstacle when I first started. So yeah, don't worry if you struggle with it at first, it's normal, so just take your time with it and it should be fine. After that, you just ignore the teleports and you run to the end of floor 4. Floor 4, south. It starts with flame wizards. You should instantly run. In case you do, you can catch the timing and go to the middle, so you only need to wait 1 cycle in order to clear the entire obstacle. If not, you start at the beginning, you stop at the middle, let the cycle go through, and then you can clear the obstacle. Then we have some thunder, easy enough, middle, 1 click, and then just run. Then we have a sword and flame wizards. This actually stumped me at first, but it's honestly pretty easy to beat. You just want to wait for the sword to be thrown and then you run right after. If you keep running, you should have enough time to get past the sword, and the flames will be on a cycle, the flame wizards will be on a cycle where they should not hit you. This one only works when you run after the sword is thrown. So if the sword is arriving, you won't have the flame wizard cycle in order to be able to beat the obstacle. So just wait for the sword to be fired and then you can just run. Just run, you don't even need to stop, you just run directly to the other side. Then you have long stretch of arrows. There is a safe spot in the middle in case you want to take a little bit of a breather, but you know, I've done this enough times by now that you know, it should be fine, even with the increased difficulty of the teleports in other obstacles. So again, just take it slowly, make progress, don't worry. Then you go down the stairs and you have a massive long stretch with thunders, teleports and a sword. It seems really daunting, but honestly, you just wait for the sword to either arrive or departure and you run right after it and spam where you are going. Just spam the minimap, right? Spam like don't spam on the screen, spam the minimap, and you should never get hit by any of the teleports or thunder. And you can just clear the entire thing in one go. Then we have some arrows and teleports. Again, same as Northern Path and same as many times you've done this before. You know, teleports are a nuisance. ignore them, focus on the arrows, make short bursts of progress, and try and click between the teleports to prevent as much teleports. So yeah, again, not a problem if you don't, just focus on the arrows, because that's really the most important thing. And then you can just go left, ignore the teleports, and you are at the end of floor 4. These are the two paths for floor 4, and then floor 5 has increased difficulty where every obstacle is even faster than floors 3 and 4. Floor 5 has a single long path distributed between the 3 smaller floors, so here, if you arrive here, this is always gonna be the path you get. There's no different paths, there's no different things, it's always this one. First up, you want to instantly run to the first square that is marked on the Flame Wizards and wait for the cycle, and then run to the second one. In case you miss this, you'll have to wait before you can try again, you know, just because the second tile will actually have wizards flame on like the second of each cycle. But again, just wait. Once the tile is free, you go to that tile and then you run to the next tile, and there you go. Optional tile is optional because you don't actually need it. However, the timing on these wizards is incredibly tight, and I really mean incredibly tight, meaning I would always recommend using the optional tile if you are first doing this. Next up, we have a sword. You cannot actually outrun this sword for the first time in the minigame. This is the same sword at the end of floor 4, the northern path. What you have to do is use the teleports to get past the sword. Even if you get teleported into the sword, remember, you have a few ticks of immunity against obstacles after being teleported. What I like to do is run right after the sword is fired and then use either the second or third row of teleports. In case you prefer to go before the sword is fired, make sure that you go to the safe tile, as there is a path around there so you don't get hit by the sword. Teleports blink 4 times before changing, so you should have around 4 ticks to click on one. You can use 2 of them if you want, and that pretty much just guarantees you clearing the entire obstacle, but personally I don't like to complicate myself and rely too much on RNG, so I just try to use the one, and it has been pretty consistent most of the times. Down the stairs, once again, you have double arrows and teleports. Again, ignore teleports, focus on the arrows, slowly but surely should do it. Then we have mages, which are all one obstacle. That entire stretch to the other side is all one obstacle. So take your time on the second half, because if you do get it there, you have to reset the entire thing and go back to the first half as well. The first part is pretty easy, especially if you respect the tiles. Then in the middle you have thunders. You can actually just go 1 tile south and pretty much ignore most of them, no worries, no problem. Then the second part, the timing is a little bit tighter, but again, it should be fine. As always, just go to the indicated tiles, wait a cycle, go to the next tile, wait a cycle, go to the next tile, wait a cycle, and you know, it's pretty easy to clear. Next you have another sword, which is exactly the same as the previous one that I just talked about. Again, just time the teleports and you should be fine. Down the stairs is another arrow obstacle, but this time it also has some thunders. You already faced this obstacle in floor 4, so nothing new here, same as before. Ignore the teleports and thunders, focus on dodging the arrows. The last obstacle, however, is an absolute fucking gauntlet, and I'm gonna be honest, most of your runs, in terms of time left, will die here. Most of the times you won't be able to loot the Grand Coffin because of this obstacle. So let's try and break it down. Personally, because of the constant arrows, I have actually 2 middle squares on the Flame Wizards to actually go, depending on which ones I've fired before. Unfortunately, these wizards are way too fast for you to be able to clear them all in one go, so you have to clear them all in 2 cycles. In case the left ones have just fired, I go to the tile that says after left, and in case it's the right ones, I move to the tile that says after right. This obstacle is pretty much reminiscent of the obstacle at the end of floor 3, however the mages and arrows are actually way faster, so you can't actually, again, complete them in one go. But yeah, you go to those tiles to the middle of Flame Wizards, dodge the arrow while the Flame Wizards go through the cycle, and then after the Flame Wizards are done, you just clear the obstacle. Then we have some thunders. Again, just the middle is preferable, but then again, just, you know, take it slowly, try not to click on the tiles where the thunders are, but It should be pretty easy, just keep focusing on the arrows because the arrows are going to be relentless, they're never going to stop. Always focus on the arrows. Then we have 2 fire wizards separated. Here I actually have 2 tiles, one being optional because in terms of timing you can clear both wizards in one cycle, but generally you can take them one at a time, and I think that is way easier and way more consistent. In the middle there, on both sides, between the flame wizards, you actually do have a safe spot to take, you know, a little bit of time, you know, just take a little bit of a break, take a little bit of a breather. Again, those tiles are completely safe. You won't ever get hit by anything there, okay? So you have plenty of time, don't worry. After that we have some more thunders, and then we have some more flame wizards. This entire obstacle is actually mirrored, so the first part and the second part are a mirror from each other. So you know, again, you sort of just have to do the same thing that you did in the first part. If they fire, or if the right wizards fire, you go to the after right. If the left wizards fire, you go to the after left. Dodge an arrow, wait a wizard cycle, and then click the or clear the obstacle. Here the arrows are pretty close to you, so dodging the arrows will be harder because you have less time to react, so it can be a little bit overwhelming. But yeah, once you're committed to clearing the wizards and you're in the middle of the wizards, just make sure they keep doing that. Another thing that you can do, and you can try and do, and this is something that I did once but it was super labored, it was easier to complete but it took way longer and it was super labored, was to just clear one tile at a time. So you let the wizards fire and you go to the first tile, you let the wizards fire, you go to the second tile, you let the wizards fire, you go to the third tile, you let the wizards fire, you go to the fourth tile, you know, and slowly, essentially, you're gaining one tile every wizard cycle. The problem is, you're gonna need like 5 or 6 wizard cycles just to make it through, while still dodging arrows constantly, so, you know, technically it is easier because you don't overwhelm yourself with, you know, having to go to the middle of the obstacle and then sort of having to clear the obstacle right away, but it's way more time consuming and way harder. It's an option if you want to try, but personally I just like the, you know, set myself, wizards fire, go to the middle, dodge one arrow, go to the end. I just find that way easier. In case you do have enough time left on the clock, you can actually pass the barrier and click on the Grand Coffin and loot it, and then you can pass the other barrier to go to the pillar and then right click it and exit. Exiting through the pillars still actually gives you the floor XP, so don't worry. Otherwise the barrier will be closed and you need to use the pillars outside of the barrier. Again, you still get the XP, so no worries about that. Remember, a lot in this minigame is about timing, and as such it will take time for you to adjust to it. It took me 100 floor 4 completions before I even set foot on floor 5. It took me a bunch of floor 5 completions in order to start getting to the Grand Coffin in time. I remember even after like my first 9 completions and then started hitting a wall with the last obstacle again, I would say that it took me around, what, 30 to 50 chests before I actually started being consistent with getting completions where I could actually loot the grand chest, and none of those included looting any other chest, by the way. So yeah, and look, ultimately just take your time, you'll become better at the minigame will become easier, you know. The floors actually have a nice rate of difficulty progression when it comes to the obstacles, you know, so don't worry, because by the time you actually reach higher floors, you already have some wealth of experience in your pocket. So again, And personally, and I really wish I actually did this, if you feel like you are struggling with an obstacle, you have infinite time to try it as much as you want. If the time runs out, all it means is that you won't be able to access the next floor, or won't be able to access loot. So, you know, you can just try it and try it and try it. If you clear it, you can just go back into it, get it, and you'll be put at the beginning of the obstacle again to try it again. So yeah, you can just practice the obstacles as much as you want. Again, you know, you can leave by logging out. That's like a way to kill the minigame, but if you don't log out, you can just sit there for an hour, 2, 3, just practicing the same obstacle over and over and over and over. And personally, if you are really struggling with an obstacle, do this. I think it's like really good. Honestly, it's a shame I didn't actually fucking do it myself. And yeah, honestly, if you have access to the minigame, even if you don't have access to floor 5, because essentially you need 52 agility for floor 1, 62 for floor 2, 72 for floor 3, 82 for floor 4, and 92 for floor 5. So even if you don't have 92 agility, or, you know, 82 or whatever, I would still recommend doing it, even without the loot, which in of itself is a pretty decent amount of GP. The XP is honestly pretty good, and the, you know, especially floor 1, 2, and 3 are actually pretty fun. They're a pretty fun method to training agility. They're not very like tilting either, so, you know, honestly, if you do have access to it, by all means, I would 100% recommending doing this. And again, just sort of reiterate, this is the way I found consistent with the minigame. Like, you might find different timings, you might beat the obstacles, you know, in a faster way or even easier way or whatever. Feel free to change whatever as you gain experience. This is simply the way I just found the easiest when it came to doing the minigame, which meant just breaking down obstacles in like 1 or 2 actions so I didn't overwhelm myself. Because something that I realized is that I was constantly overwhelming myself with, you know, trying to go fast or whatever, so I just broke everything down to be easier and just be 1, 2 clicks and I would clear obstacles, right? So yeah, you know, experience above everything. So yeah, with that we actually reached the end of the guide, which is a pretty long one, but I thought a lot about like different ways of doing it, but honestly, a playthrough was like the only way I actually had to cover all of the floors and all of the obstacles, because, you know, I just found it to be easier to just show how they are meant to be beaten, or like how you can beat them. So yeah, I hope I didn't miss anything super important, and again, like, I did focus mostly on the gameplay rather than like, you know, the requirements or whatever, because to me there's like the most important part. You know, like, figuring out the gameplay of Hallowed Sepulchre to me is much harder than figuring out like the requirements or whatever, which you can just go to the wiki. So yeah, anyway, if you have any questions or if you have anything else that you want me to cover or whatever, make sure you leave it in the comments and I'll make sure they get answered. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.